Now we're taking a look at something notorious and interesting. We're taking a look at a frog archetype which debuted in GX, and they were used by a filler villain known as Princess Rose during the Season 2. And yeah, notorious, you may ask? A bunch of frogs? Yeah, we'll get to that, to all those who don't know. And anyway, let's get started with their first monster, Tadpole. In all caps and an abbreviation for what? Anyway, it's a level 1 Aqua with 0 attack and defense, and when this card you control is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can add any number of Tadpoles from your deck to your hand. It seems rather pointless at first, but it actually plays into one of their quote-unquote boss monsters. Yeah, into one of their combos, but anyway, we'll get to the more interesting side of the frog soon. Continuing on, we have one of their more notable and best monsters, that being Submarine Frog. Once per turn during your standby phase, if this card is in your graveyard and you don't control a Submarine Frog, you can special summon this card, and you must control no one spell and trap cards to activate and resolve this effect. This card was actually, I think, limited or even banned at a certain point where you could actually summon multiples of them, and yeah, this thing actually got Anuradha to give it a once per turn effect and restricted to summoning only one of them. And yeah, this thing was basically used in Monarch decks as a tribute engine, because Monarchs at the time didn't have tribute fodder of their own, so any bit helped. So it was basically a notorious way to generate tribute fodder for one of the best archetypes, one of the best meta archetypes of all time. Nowadays it's actually used commonly in some tribute fodder decks which are in desperate need of it. So yeah, in frogs it's not used as much because, well, we'll get to why it was used also heavily in frogs back in the day, but yeah, this is a really nice card and you should max out on it, always. Next up we have Trade Toad. And yeah, once per turn you contribute one Aqua-type monster, and select one frog monster in your graveyard except Frog the Jam, because why not? Special summon that monster from your graveyard. I mean, it's alright, once per turn effect, but it's mostly irrelevant, and it resembles something bigger, something much more grandiose, namely its grown-ass daddy, that being Substitute. And yes, you can tribute one monster to special summon one frog monster from your deck, except Frog the Jam. Frog monster except Frog the Jam cannot be destroyed by battle. Most hardcore Yu-Gi-Oh players should recognize this fellow right away for very, very obvious reasons. This thing is a notorious FTK enabler alongside with their next monster, their first level 2, Ronin Totem. Cannot be used as a synchro material. This card's name becomes Death Frog while it is on the field. This part of the effect is completely irrelevant. Its second part of the effect is what makes this thing a notorious FTK enabler. If this card is in your graveyard, you can banish one frog monster from your graveyard, special summon this card. And this, along with Substitute's effect, is not once per turn. So what the play was, you use Substitute to tribute all of your monsters to get them all into the graveyard, so you can actually generate enough material for Ronin Totem to keep reviving himself forever, and then use Mass Driver to completely obliterate your opponent's life points in one turn. And yeah, because of this, both Mass Driver and Substitute are now banned. While Ronin Totem still is Ronin Totem at 3. So yeah, this was a very notorious FTK deck during the 2015 year, January I believe. And yeah, this was just outright broken for the time, game breaking. Not even Chaos Emperor Dragon was that broken how this thing could generate some massive burn damage. So yeah, and helping that fact was Swap Frog, their other level 2. And you can special summon this card from your hand by discarding one other water monster. When this card is summoned, you can send one level 2 or lower aqua water monster from your deck or face up from the field to the graveyard, and once per turn you can return one monster you control to the hand, and you can only normal summon one frog monster during your main phase except for Swapped Frog, in addition to your normal summon or set. So yeah, this basically special summons Substitute, and can search it out, send it to the graveyard, Rolling Totem as well. Basically, it's the graveyard setup and free monster generator in an archetype that focused on the FTK for the longest time until it was made illegal. So yeah, I'm not sure if either Substitute or, well, Mass Driver for sure as hell ain't gonna come off the ban list, but I'm not sure if Substitute is even going to come off the ban list as well. If it does, it's probably gonna remain at limited for the remainder of its lifespan, unless they give it a hard once per turn effect or something like that. So yeah, it's very, very debatable. And yeah, Swap Frog was basically ran at 3 because of its really good swarming effect and graveyard setup. So yeah, in modern Frog decks, yeah, you also run this at 3 because nowadays they're used for their rank 2 plays, and they also have their Archetype rank 2. We'll get to that, trust me. And yeah, that's pretty much it for Swap Frog. And now let's go on to some of their less notable monsters. Flip-Flop Frog being the first one. Once per turn you can flip this card into face-down defense position. When this card is flipped face-up, you can return monsters to your opponent controls to their owner's hand up to the number of frog monsters you control, except Frog the Jam. I mean, it's a bit too slow to matter, and again, it was ran strictly due to Ronin Totem fodder and nothing much else. So yeah, not much else to say here. Next up we have Submarine Frog, and its only effect is to inflict piercing damage. Yeah, talk about the worst Infernity Dwarf ever. Not only at least Infernity Dwarf gave all monsters your opponent controlled piercing damage as long as you had no cards in your hand, but yeah, this thing has way too much pathetic stats in order to matter. And next up we have Frog, and this card can attack your opponent directly. And this card successfully attacks directly if you control a frog monster other than Frog the Jam or Frog. You can destroy one spell or trap your opponent controls. It's okay. It's decent spell and trap removal given its level and direct attacker. And yeah, this frog decks are usually nowadays run the Wetlands Beatdown. Very imaginative name there. But anyway, yeah, Wetlands Beatdown is the most common play the frogs commonly make, because all of them are level 2 water monsters, and Wetlands basically gives 1200 attack to all level 2 water monsters, meaning it turns Frog into a 1600 attack direct attacker. I mean, it turns Submarine Frog into a 2400 beat stick, but it's still not that good of an effect. I mean, if it did something else along with that piercing damage, I probably wouldn't have been so hard on it, but it's not that good, honestly. And their last, no, it's not their last level 2, what am I saying? Their next level 2 is Poison Draw Frog. When this card is face up on the field card is sent to the graveyard, unless it was attacked while face down and destroyed by battle, you can draw 1 card. Alright, so this is useless. I mean, it was used at the time for the Substitutes effect, meaning you get a free card whenever you tribute this thing, but nowadays it's not very useful. I mean, it can be used but when link summoning, but it misses timing on a lot of situations, and that's my biggest problem with this, because it's the freaking when this card is face-up card is on the field is sent to the graveyard, instead of if this face-up card is sent to the graveyard. Yeah, if it ever got a retrain where it said if, max out on it. And now their last level 2 is Doop Frog. This card's name becomes Death Frog while it is on the field. Monsters your opponent controls cannot target monsters for attacks except this one. When this card is sent to the, from the field to the graveyard, you can add one frog monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand except the Doop Frog. And yeah, this is actually a bit of a samey effect as Poison Draw Frog, except a bit better, I might add, because it allows you to search out any frog monster. And yeah, if it was an if, it would also be a lot more splashable and playable. And yeah, and this thing's effect mentions this D3S Frog. Yeah, and also Ronan Totem also mentioned D3S Frog. So what is it exactly? We'll actually soon get to that, but first we have to cover Bill's Frog, who gains 300 attack for each Tadpole in your graveyard. Yeah, I mean, again, this is their first level 3. It's if it was a level 2, I'd tolerate it more because it enables rank 2 plays. But this is one of the only cards which benefits from running Tadpole in your deck, along with D3S Frog, which we'll mention soon. And yeah, he basically ran this because Substitute again. You ran most of these because of Substitute yet again. Anyway, next up we have D3S Frog, the card mentioned many times. It's a level 5 monster for goddamn reasons, with 1900 attack and 0 defense, and when this card is tribute summon, you can special summon D3S Frogs from your hand or deck up to the number of Tadpoles in your graveyard. So basically what you did is let one of your Tadpoles back in the day at least get destroyed by battle, and then set another Tadpole and make sure it survived the next turn, so you contribute it for this thing, so you had 2 Tadpoles in your graveyard to summon 2 more copies of this. What's the benefit of this, and what's the benefit of D3S Frog? Anyway, we'll actually mention that when we get to their next monster, that being D3S Frog. It's a fusion that requires 3 D3S Frogs, and its only effect is that it gains 500 attack for each Treeborn Frog in your graveyard. I mean, to be fair, it does get turned into a 4000 attack beatstick, but that's literally all it is. Nothing else this thing does to provide any additional plays or tribute fodder for substitute anything. I mean, you can tribute it, but who would want to tribute a 4K beater? Yeah, anyway, this is a card you absolutely run by preference. If you run it at all, you don't run it at any more than 1. And next up we have their other boss monster, that being totally awesome. The rank 2, sorry, XC requires 2 level 2 Aquatech monsters, and once per turn, during the standby phase, you can detach one Xyz material from this card, special summon 1 frog monster from your deck. Once per turn, during either player's turn, when your opponent activates a spell or trap, or a monster effect, you can send 1 Aquatech monster from your hand or face up from the field to the graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. Then you can set it to your field. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target 1 water monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. This card is borderline awesome, totally awesome to be more exact. Not only do you get the back row piece the opponent tried to use against you, but you can also, it also has a really nice floating effect, and you can also special summon frogs from your deck. It's really amazing. Awesome. Yeah, it's definitely better than that goddamn D3S Frog, and yeah, it basically ran in any possible deck that can also benefit from running Bahamut Shark, since Bahamut Shark can easily summon this thing. And so yeah, it's a very nice counter card and a very cool boss monster, and I hope it sees a lot more play because that artwork is so cute and amazing. And next up we have their only spell card, that being D3S Croaking. If you control 3 D3S Frogs, destroy all cards your opponent controls. Yeah, this is a bit more useful to do if you have some Ronin Totems and Doop Frogs on the field. So yeah, you don't necessarily have to run the original D3S Frogs in order to get this effect off. So yeah, run by preference, since again it can be a bit too cloggy in modern frog builds. And their last card is the trap card Froggy Force Field. Activate only when a face-up frog monster you control, except Frog the Jam, is selected as an attack target. Destroy all attack position monsters your opponent controls. Well, who would have thought? An archetypal mirror force. This is something you rarely see every day. I think the only other archetype that has, at least that I know, that have an archetypal mirror force are aliens, and their mirror force is actually pretty mediocre. Well, this one is actually pretty nice and cute. Anyway, those were all the frogs. Now let's grade those frogs. Their consistency has become very much worse since the banning of Substitute, but it's still very relevant due to Swap Frog, totally awesome, and Ronin Totem's revival ability is really nice. Doop Frog can search. Poison Draw Frog offers draw power. So yeah, I'm actually anxious to be very generous here and give it a 3 out of 3. Power is usually lower on these parts because even with Wetlands Beatdown, they still don't get enough attack power to be considered powerhouses. I mean, Unifrog gets turned into a 1600 attack direct attacker, and Submarine Frog becomes a 2400 attack beat stick which inflicts piercing damage, which is still not that relevant to be considered a powerhouse. So yeah, I'm gonna give him a 1 out of 3 there. I am going to give the comeback ability a 3 out of 3 because of Ronin Totem and Totally Awesome's back row eating effect, as you'd call it. Doop Frog and Poison Draw Frog once again are excellent targets for link monsters, so that you can actually get some more draws and searching going on. And yeah, protection, yeah, I don't know. Throughout the archetype I didn't see any relevant traces of protection whatsoever, so yeah, 1 out of 3 there. And now for the versatility. Treeborn Frog is extremely splashable. In the Wetlands Beatdown, they see some play in Ice Barrier builds along with some of their own level 4s in order to make a Bahamut Shark even. Totally Awesome is extremely splashable, so yeah, I'm gonna give him a 3 out of 3 in the versatility department. So that were frogs. Yeah, I would actually curious to see how will they evolve in the following years of Yu-Gi-Oh, since, you know, their best playstyle has been demolished and made illegal, and the new support hasn't been made since Totally Awesome came out, meaning Totally Awesome came out in Invasion Vengeance, which was in 2015, 16, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, those were frogs, and yeah, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more videos and updates. Comment, like, and subscribe, and as usual, I'll upload the next vid whenever I can. See you all, have a good day, and peace.